We're joined by film and television producer Gavin Polone. His next film, Zombieland, opens October 2nd. I think more compelling to this conversation, quite honestly, is Gavin's history of success as a businessman and decision to turn into a political activist of sorts out of Hollywood, but not from the deep left that is more expected from Hollywood, but from the center right, which I think makes you very interesting. Gavin, welcome to the conversation. Also with us, Ruth Beitler, professor of comparative politics at the U.S. Military Academy, an expert on the Middle East, and then you can see Jonathan and Ezra. Gavin, if you were the President of the United States and you look at that Cairo speech and his sort of proclamation of straight talk, true talk, real talk about all issues in this country, how would you frame the conversation between the Palestinians and the Israelis to try to move to the next phase of debate, if you will? I don't know if you guys can hear Gavin, but I cannot. I'm going to see, they're out to get you, Gavin. They've got your microphone turned off. Ruth, same question to you.
Yeah, I think really the United States has to frame it in a way that there is pressure on both sides to be able to come to the table to make some decisions.
So be specific. Where would you apply that pressure?
Well, first of all, I think that Israel does have to freeze settlements, but at the same time, we're not hearing much about what the Palestinians need to be doing. They need to be flexible and willing to adapt in some of their issues, such as the right of return of refugees, which is really a non-starter for anyone on any side of the political spectrum in Israel.
Gavin, do I have you back?
Yes.
Yeah?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I did. Did you hear my question before? I'll repeat it for your bid. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's pretty simple. We've had a policy for 40 years where we've given Israel a blank check. We've given them billions of dollars. And it has done nothing but make us strategically more vulnerable. It hasn't worked even for Middle East peace. Ultimately, I think what we have to start doing is putting more pressure on the Israelis by telling them we're going to withdraw that blank check. We're not going to be supporting them in the UN. If they don't move far from their position where it is right now to accommodate the Palestinians and create a two-state solution, to stop the settlements and to bring about peace.
Would we be credible, though, Gavin, in that threat? In other words, if we were to say we'll pull the money, do the powers that be in this country have the guts to do that?
Well, so far we haven't really seen that. Obama has taken a small step in that direction. Obviously, like with all the different things that you talk about on this show, it all starts from money and politics. The Israeli lobby in Washington is amongst the 2 or 3 most powerful, and that's the reason why they've been able to sort of enforce their will with Congress and with presidents. It's been estimated in many different, publications that between 45% and 60% of the money that was contributed to the Democratic Party in the last year came from Jewish individuals and groups who have a pro-Israel bent. So ultimately, I think that it's going to have to take a lot of leadership from Obama in order to change course. But ultimately, it's going to create a better situation for us. We'll have more influence in the world. And I do really believe that it would lead to Middle East peace.
Ruth?
I just want to mention something that I disagree somewhat. Although AIPAC is definitely very strong and obviously has an influence on the government, I think that right now it's not in President Obama's interest to say we're going to pull the plug on money. That has long-term strategic implications for later on weakening Israel. I don't think President Obama wants to do that. I don't think it's just the pressure from AIPAC.
Yeah. How much does it hurt U.S. negotiating leverage, Gavin, with Iran and other forces in the Middle East that Israel retains the exemption from nuclear nonproliferation? So while we walk around obviously being very aggressive with all the Middle Eastern states about nuclear material, we do provide this exemption for Israel.
I don't think it's only the Middle East. I think it's all over the world. We have maintained 2 different platforms, one for the rest of the world and one for Israel. For the rest of the world, we've said you must join the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty. Israel probably has 200 nuclear weapons and is not a member of that treaty, and we just ignore it and we give them tons of money. We say to the rest of the world, you should become democratic and you should not engage in racist practices. Israel ultimately is not democratic when it comes to all of their population, and they engage in what is pretty much a light version of apartheid when it comes to the Palestinian people.
Your response, Ruth?
Well,
so ultimately, it undermines our credibility. I don't know how we can have influence with the rest of the world.
And that's the fundamental question. It's not about should we do this with Israel or that with Israel. It's very quickly, to what extent does how we relate to Israel, period, undermine our credibility and our leverage for foreign policy around the world?
Well, I think it influences our policy, and I think what President Obama is trying to do is undo some of the things that had been done in the 8 years of the Bush administration.
But do you agree that the current set of relationships could be improved to at least to increase the quality of American diplomatic leverage if we had a different set of relationships, or at least a different perceived set of relationships with Israel?
Absolutely. I think we need to be more even-handed. We had 8 years of not even-handed, but I still think that strategically we do look at Israel as a partner. They are a democracy in the Middle East. And in that sense, I think we can be more even-handed towards the Palestinians, but also we have to keep in mind the security issue for Israel.
Understood. Ruth, thank you very much. Gavin, thank you. Hope to see you soon. Ezra and Jonathan, you did a fantastic job of looking very lovely in that quad box. We will get to you in earnest shortly.